basically, I don't have enough time, and I don't have the budget, not enough funding, seed funding, not enough. I don't have a small loan of $1 million to make this series. We're already working head of nose deep in the other series that we're working on right now. And so I really don't have enough time, or it's really the time problem isn't the big limiter. The big limiter is the seed funding, the budget to make this series. So this is officially the pitch for ESCAPE2, title pending, the story of vampires. Now, I already wrote most of the first novel and lost all of that on my hard drive. If I could get that, I could get that back and publish that novel. That's kind of like the foundational work, but I always wanted to make it into a series as well. This would probably be the first episode. So if this is interesting to you, change. All right. Change! I have to be loud enough so I can know when to change. We'll see which one I use. I'm recording both at the same time right now. If this is interesting to you, feel free to check out the link. We might just spin up a crowdfunder for this to get it funded. The series is based in a whole timeline where things aren't quite the same as our timeline. It's not like Escape, Awake, or Beyond. I should say it's like it, but it's not the same. It's not the time. It's not the reality of Escape 1, where Fallen Man is set in, and it's not the reality of Awake or Beyond, where those stories are set in. It is in Escape 2. You can see that's a little different than Escape 1. Okay, and in Escape 2 there are vampires. And so this first episode would probably start off with the main character. We're going to just call him Dane. Or maybe we're going to call him Bob. I don't know what his name is. We'll just say the main character. He is in fact in a show. He's talking in like a show, not a podcast, but like the old school shows, talk shows, and he's talking about his friendship with P. Dippy, who is in this fictional reality, he's a rapper who like has his own record label, and he had a lot of connections, and everybody thought that, oh no, wait a minute, there might be something bad happening at his parties, and then there was a big investigation, and it turned out that everything that happened was just consulting adults, and they're just consulting adults doing silly things and sexual things with each other, totally above board, but a little bit here and there that were illegal, just a little bit here and there that was illegal, that you could totally put them in jail for. It's just a slap on the wrist sort of thing. And so the conspiracy stories sprung up about how there was actually more going on, including eating the blood of young people and some weird stories in this alternate timeline. This is the pitch for ESCAPE2. Okay, so he is officially a friend, but he wasn't a friend before the investigation started. So it turns out our main character isn't actually a friend of P. Dippy. He was hired by the government to kind of do an investigation into the thing, and he's kind of like a detective. And while he's doing this investigation, he finds out some things he didn't quite know, but other things that he already knew, and he's kind of hired to be like the nice guy, to be the handler of P. Dippy during this transitionary period where they try to cover everything up that P. Dippy was part of. It turns out that P. Dippy was a vampire, and the other characters in this story, some of them might be vampires and some might not be, but he's not a big fan, and no love lost for P. Dippy, but he's kind of brought in by the government to cover it up and take care of ironing out some things. But he finds out that not only is, quite interestingly enough, there are vampires and some things happening on, that talk show was kind of the official finalization of the cover-up, and then you get into the real story where he's behind the scenes, and he's sent to be part of he's sent to a dinner where P. Dippy is, and where perhaps the establishment decides they want to kind of, he's just gotten out of jail after his short period of time there. He's free of everything, but they don't want any more questions, so he might have to just disappear. But the point is, our main character has some things about him that you don't know about him. He's found out some things along the way, and that might be a whole series in and of itself. But he's found out he himself is also enwrapped in this story. This might be two characters. In fact, I might split these two people apart. But there's the detective, yes, let's just say, and then there's the other main character. Maybe it's the same guy whose name is main character 2. I don't know. Let's call him by the detective and Aiken. Maybe they're the same person. This part I'm just coming up with right now, but I'm trying to tell a story based on the dream I had last night. So I have to get it all out real quick, real fast. And this is where we change to the, well, basically what we have here is we have the party, and this party is inside underground in this special restaurant. And he's sent there to just, be part of it and make sure things go smoothly. The detective, and of course the Aiken, which is, we are going to be focusing on the Aiken, whether or not this is the same character. The Aiken is in fact Aiken, which is something that he is finding out about himself. He's not quite like human beings. And basically, he leaves the party to do some looking around. And he finds some people who are in a side part of the food area where they're cooking things on top of a cooker. There's like a shelf where there's food. Change. Okay, there's a shelf where there's food, and on top of that there's a cooker, and maybe the cooker on a lower level, and you cook stuff on the lower level, and then you put up on the top level, whichever what cooks better. And there's a guy there who's kind of liberal and white and kind of snobby knobby wobby, and kind of pissing Aiken off, and so Aiken grabs him by the neck and pulls him down, and the guy's like, I'm not suffocating yet, and he's like, oh fine. Look, good for you, for not passing out, and good for me for stopping now. And so then he stops doing that, leaves his friends and the other people alone to do their cooking or their baking, and then walks off to take a look at the freezers and stuff and the storage rooms. And he finds this one freezer where there is a large tarp in the shape of a humanoid form, a frozen elder vampire. Okay, he's like, okay, why is there a frozen elder vampire inside this freezer? Maybe the detective's off in another area. I just added the detective, and this wasn't in the dream. This is focusing on Aiken. So that the Aiken, I don't know what his name is, but the Aiken, mind you, he's Aiken. So in the other realities, there are Aiken and there are Akana, but the Akanai, the Akana are a different group of people who are like the first generation of Aiken who came from outer space, and then the Aiken are the human version of, or the human edition, you should say, of A-Spawn. So as Aiken, he's like, okay, I got to do some more investigations, and so he starts getting a small group of humans together to get ready for what's about to come, to maybe take the vampire away so that nothing bad happens, to take care of the situation. And then he goes and he opens the door and goes out of this underground area into the tunnel where it starts. That's how you'd enter into it. This big door that could be easily locked from the inside or the outside, and basically how everybody came in. And there's the trail tracks, and it's a tunnel that just goes under the mountain, and then off of the tunnel is the entrance into this big restaurant, right? And there's a worker there who's just an ordinary human, and he confides in him, and he tells up the story about P. Diddy and how vampires, and how he's officially like a friend of P. Diddy. Pippi, sorry, Pippi, Pippi, you gotta pity the poor fella. We'll just call him Mr. P from now on. So Mr. P and Aiken, he tells that, and he's like, all right, you need to get ready because I think there's some vampires here, and we need to make sure we can get everyone out. before anything bad happens, because he wasn't part of this. And of course, the government's setting Aiken up for this whole thing. If Aiken survives, they'll pin it all on him as a terrorist, and if Aiken doesn't survive, they'll be like, well, we took out two problems. The Aiken who was working with us for us as a detective, but then it turns out he's got other priorities, finding out what he is, who he is, and what Aiken is, and he's finding out, and then of course Mr. P and Mr. P's as another loose end to tie up. And so what would be a better way to tie it up than to resurrect an elder vampire? And there's a few elder vampires. There's not many of them. They're usually like 7 or 8 feet tall. That's why it's such a large body in the freezer. And like 7 or 8 feet tall. And anyways, scene change where we're in the outside in the rail tracks here talking to the guy. And he's like, all right. And then they can't get back into the door. It's been locked from the inside, which... Huh? This part I'm adding to the dream to make more sense, because in the dream they got back in or somewhere and went downstairs, but it might make more sense that they go downstairs from the trail tracks. So they go back, so he's like, all right, you got to go downstairs. There's an easy way for them to all escape if you go downstairs. So they go downstairs into the lower region below in the mountain, below the restaurant. And that way he can go back up into the restaurant through a secret passageway and get them all to go down. So when he goes down there, he finds some people working, and lo and behold, there's an opening that exits to like the trail track areas or to another area outside. And he had come down into that. So from the trail tracks, this place is opening out to another side, another area probably of the mountain change. And basically, he's finds some stuff, and they're all like, oh, who are you? What are you doing here? And to do a shit test, they have him push this green button to see if he's in on it or whatever they're planning and plotting down there and they're working on. And he pushes it, and it doesn't act. It activates, which means that he's not one of their group, one of their vampire slave peoples, right? But then he pretends to be possessed with the consciousness of the vampires or something to make them fool into believing that he is in fact working with them. And they're like, okay, you one of us, you know. And so basically, some of this might be subject to changes. This is just a pitch, and this is change underground here where we have the green button, and then he walks away, and then he goes into another freezer area, and he's like, he finds the door. First, he finds the door up into the restaurant where he can go up and evacuate people. And so he goes and he finds a human, and he tells him, you need to get out of here. You need to get out of here. And he's like, this is not going to be fast enough. There's some humans down there too. And there's like there's vampires, no vampires here, but there's vampire workers who are like the slaves of vampires, and then there's regular humans. And so he's talking to regular humans, you need to get out of here. When it's time, you need to get out of here. That door right there, that opening. And then he's like, oh, I'll just do a pager. So he does a pager, and supposedly the pager is for all of downstairs, but it might also be for all of the restaurant. And he does a call, and he says, it's time for everyone to get out. We have a fire or something. Maybe he says there's vampires, maybe he doesn't, but he's got to just get everyone out of the building now. And then he's like, that's done. And so now he knows that the vampire slaves are going to try to kill him, because he's like, no, because they're trying to release the vampire in the middle of all these people locked into the restaurant, right? And they can't get downstairs where he's at. They can't get out through into the trail tracks. So it's all about the people in the restaurant to get eaten up by the elder vampire. And so basically he goes into this tunnel, which is where you go to then go upstairs to another trail track area. I think it's how you get up to the restaurant though. And there was some vampires there already. Because when they were trying to get back in, change, when the door is locked or whatever, before the door is shut on them, they saw the elder vampire standing up, and so it had already started, and so he had to hurry up and get down there. And so now he's got a stake. He figured out how to make, and he's staking these things in the heart, and they're not going down quick enough. He keeps doing it a few times, pulling it out and putting it in their hearts again, and he's like, wow, this is not working like it does in the stories. But he runs out of there, and he's got maybe a female human or a few other human who are like with him, and so he's like, all right, you need to get out of there. I already told you it's that or maybe this is when he does the paging, and go to that hole right there. And then he goes to the other freezer that's down here, the big freezer down here. And he's like, all right, is there another vampire in here? Because there's a little thing that he's found out about vampires, this Akin, is that there's a one thing that they hate more than humans, other vampires, specifically other clans, houses, or families, and those are all specific designations, factions, or species of vampire. So he goes in there and he finds this gigantic 10-foot tall sarcophagus, and on the other side, standing up, and the other side is another one that's smaller or bigger, I'm not sure. I think he realizes that's the ancient one, and he heard maybe some little stories about the ancient one, the first vampire in human form. And on the other side would probably be his right hand man, his lieutenant, his first. She is, I don't know if he's taller or shorter. The point is, he's the first one. She's the first of his own blood. It used to be that there were no human vampires, and then someone figured out how to birth vampires in human form. So in other words, vampires were born, not the way that humans are born, but they found a way to create them, kind of like hatchlings or eggs or something like that, to be birthed as a vampire. And then they did that, and they created several human vampires, but they all didn't like each other. They all didn't like each other because they were all first generation births, new families. So they're all basically heads of families, and they didn't like each other. Well, the ancient one is one of these beings, and he's the only one to survive. And he's like 10,000 years old. His lieutenants kept betraying him, so he finally found out a way to use his own blood to create a new vampire. And that's where the bloodlines start, where he creates this female vampire by biting a human woman or something to that effect. So this is his first-hand man, or his lieutenant, his change, his lady, and she's on the other side. She's cloaked in her ancient black and red crimson laced outfit, and she's there frozen, because all vampires, humans, when they go into freezers, they eventually die. Vampires, they freeze and then they stay frozen. Now, newer vampires, when they wake up out of being frozen, they're good to go. Older ones, like the ancient one and lieutenant, because this is mimicking how they were born, they are subject to being able to be controlled. When they're first awakening up from frozen slumber, they can be easily manipulated, because they're like, oh, my brain's dying, and it's like how they were born. So he decides to wake her, doing his best to make sure she doesn't find out that on the other side of her is her master. So he wakes her, and he says, hey, there's this other vampire going on. Why would you wake me, human? And she's like, you're not human. You're Akanai. He's like, what's that? Akanai, those who came from the great darkness. What? And so he's figuring out for the first time there's a race of beings similar to the Akin, his namesake, right? Maybe that's his name, maybe it's not, but similar to the Akin, but from outer space. And she didn't know of anything. She didn't know of any other kind of Akin. She only knew the Akanai, the Akana, the ones from outer space, right? And so she's like, for them, there's some sort of like incompatibility. But if the newer modern vampires were to know that there's an Akin, they're going to either kill the Akin. They're going to, because they're not smart enough to do anything else, they're going to want to kill the Akin, most likely. They're going to be afraid of the Akin. Or if they're a little smarter, they might want to use the Akin. Because if they can turn an Akin, or get the blood of an Akin, they can become more powerful than any other vampire. Only a few know that. But this is an ancient vampire before the Akin existed. She only knows of the Akana. And the Akana were like mortal enemies. They were like equals. And so respect is there immediately. but she's being birthed. Not for the first time, though. So it's not like she's allied with him, but she's susceptible to be manipulated with simple logic. And he's like, there's an elder one, a great descendant, an inferior vampire. He's wreaking havoc upstairs, making more of his kind. Now they've led vampires astray from vampirism. You might want to go up there and stop them. Plenty of humans to go around, but the humans aren't the threat in this case. You've got a whole clan of these vampires who aren't like you and your master. Maybe up there you can find out more information about where your master is, and maybe he doesn't even bring up the master. And she's like, oh yes. So she gets out of her coffin, and before she turns around to see right behind her, she can't smell him because it's in that freezer, her master. She sees a vampire who just came into the freezer. She's like, inferior. So change. She goes right after those vampires and then chases them upstairs into the restaurant to attack the elder one there, who's creating more vampires by biting them. This enables Aiken to finally go up there and let people down into the lower area where I was talking about, where they can just run out the door. He can also find a way to break open that side door, finding the other exits to get as many humans out as possible. To free them, Mr. P has already been fed upon or been turned into a vampire, which he was probably the only one in the room who was a vampire in the first part. Because he was a vampire, he was just a vampire that needed to be thrown out of the bus, and so he's probably either already been killed by the regardless. Mr. P's, he had it coming for him, and there was a whole bunch of humans already turned into vampires. It just kind of happened. Aiken was finding out about it while it was happening. He was trying to stop it from happening. Maybe he didn't do the best job, but he didn't know that he's basically trying to get people ready to get the heck out of there right when the Elder One woke up. He couldn't really kill the Elder One right then and there because killing an Elder One's not that easy. They're like 7 feet tall. They're very powerful. And this female, ancient female vampire might be a lot shorter than the Elder One, but she is an ancienter. She's one of the two that survived. And so this doesn't quite end up the way that the establishment in the government, who they turned out, it turns out that those people who are in charge, secretly controlling things under the scenes, and maybe not the official government, maybe not the shadow elite class or the deep state, but the dark state. See, in this reality change, there are 3 groups of people, other than the peasants, right? The 4th group. The 5th group might be the Aiken or other groups, but there's the official government, right? There's the shadow elite class, which is like the people who assassinated JFK, those kinds of people, the Pentagon, the bureaucratic class, the FBI, the CIA, the deep state, and then there's the dark state. And the dark state is controlled by vampires. The dark state is the vampires. And they're the ones kind of really controlling things. And they've been pointing humanity in different directions and using humanity to prepare. They give humanity certain injections and certain treatments and food and conditioning to be better food. But they don't want to exterminate humanity because that's their food source, their main food source. But the Ancient One is not awake today. And the Ancient One might want to change things completely different, upset the whole establishment. They were keeping him, a certain fraction of these vampires were keeping him for a rainy day, and then they found his lieutenant, and put her right beside him. That works for us, I guess. And basically, there was a few other characters I didn't talk about because I forgot them. In the drain, there was a female human, I think, who was upstairs trying to stay alive when the elder vampire gets out. And so that character and Aiken are the main characters for this new series. So if you like where this series is going and you want to read the book it's based off of, I almost finished that novel, but I lost the file in the change hard drive. It might be recoverable, but for now, I think we could start this series. We probably need to raise about, I'm not sure exactly how much, but probably more than $0. And we're currently working on another series, and that if you want to check out that other series and watch the first episode, the second episode hopefully will come out later this year, completely for free without any funding. But to make a third episode of that, fourth episode, and to start this series, I think we're going to need a little bit of seed funding. So if you're interested, you can check out the Afterdark series, and that link will probably be in the description. But if you're interested in supporting this pitch story, this series, which would be a whole new series, and that would have been probably the first episode, maybe the second episode. We'll see. We'll probably create a crowdfunder for it with some exclusive rewards, and you can check that out in the change link right here. Thank you for watching. I hope that I can edit this in a reasonable amount of time to add all this stuff. And yeah, the only thing they fear, other than their food source drying up, is the Aiken. Those descended from a single genetic line with an ancient mystery, more powerful than the entire history of all vampire. Find out more on ESCAPE2. Title name pending.